And moving on now, President Bola Tinubu has commended the National Assembly for its decisive and patriotic ratification of the state of emergency proclamation in Rivers State, a critical step to restoring stability after protracted political crisis that have paralyzed governance in the state and endangered national economic security for over 15 months. The president specifically commended the National Assembly, its leadership, President Godswill Akpabio, House of Representatives Speaker Abbas Tajuddin, and other principal officers and members of the prioritizing the security and welfare of Rivers State people above partisan interests and other considerations, saying that the crisis in Rivers State was at a perilous tipping point, threatening the security of vital oil and gas installations and undermining the national economy, and significant progress were made in the reforms initiated since her administration commenced in May 2023. This move comes despite mounting oppositions from several quarters.
It was a tense but decisive day at the National Assembly as the Senate convened behind closed doors to deliberate on a crucial matter, the proclamation of a state of emergency in Rivers State. The session, held in accordance with Order 135 of the Senate Standing Rules, followed the official receipt of a presidential letter detailing the emergency declaration. After extensive deliberations in an executive session, the Senate emerged with a firm resolution.
The Senate invokes the powers conferred on it by Section 305, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, and approve the proclamation of state of emergency declared by Mr. President in Rivers State of Nigeria.
The Senate invoked Section 305, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution and unanimously approved the state of emergency and outlined key resolutions, including a joint ad hoc committee of both chambers of the National Assembly to oversee the administration of Rivers State, a mandate empowering President Tinubu to review or terminate the emergency rule at any time but not exceeding 6 months, the formation of a committee of eminent Nigerians to mediate and resolve political tensions within the Rivers State government.
Mr. President, I have a point of order for which you have recognized me.
Listen to me now.
However, the session was not without moments of drama. There was a brief standoff when the senator representing Bayelsa West attempted to raise a point of order under Orders 133 and 135 of the Senate Standing Rules. Initially, the President of the Senate ruled him out of order, accusing him of attempting to derail proceedings, particularly after he had publicly opposed the emergency declaration. But after further deliberation, he was allowed to clarify his stance, insisting his concerns was simply about ensuring that due process was followed.
Yes. Let's not argue. If we argue, it won't be good for any of us. We are all distinguished people. You are a former governor, I'm a former governor. Please be seated. I watched you on television, and you said no matter what the Senate does, the Senate will never go with you. The Senate will not go with you.
The point of order I rose to address is to draw the attention of the presiding officer and our colleagues to the specific provisions of our rules. The proclamation has been read to us, and I wanted to draw your attention, Mr. President, respectfully, and the attention of all our colleagues to the specific provisions of our rules. Order 135. The framers of this are very exhaustive. Once you say state of emergency declaration, there is a procedure.
Interesting conversation, and I can tell you it's been a roller coaster in Nigeria in the last 1 week. And joining me live is a lawyer and the coordinator of the McGregor Gender Foundation, Barrister Yewande Ogundipe. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, this conversation, I remember before we came on there.
Exactly.
Now, the National Assembly has ratified the proclamation of the state of emergency in Rivers State.
Yeah.
First of all, before we even come to the National Assembly, let me have your take. on the declaration itself. Some have said the president does not have the power to suspend the governor and the deputy governor and the lawmakers, because the provision is not in the constitution. Yes. But that of state of emergency can be upheld. But how do you, as a lawyer, how do you take this first before we now move into the ratification by the National Assembly?
All right. Just like you rightly said, it's not a constitutional provision. Suspension of the governor or members of the House of Assembly. It's not constitutionally provided for. But there are situations and circumstances that might warrant such a situation or such a power being invoked. We need to get away from attaching sentiments to things. Looking at the history of what has been happening in Rivers State, you would not expect the president to sit back and watch. A lot of people have said several things. Several opinions are flying. But we need to be very, very objective about this. Would you have preferred if this suspension was not done? Or would you have preferred for a state of anarchy in the state? We need to go beyond sentiments, really. If the president, under advisement, I'm very sure, because they are experts when it comes to conflict management, they would have advised accurately, if we do not go ahead and make this decision, Mr. President, this and this and this might ensure. I'm a gender advocate. We know what happens when all these conflicts are not regulated on time. Women and children end up being at the front. They're the ones that bear the brunt most. Yeah. So the president going ahead to make the proclamation and going ahead to suspend, fine, the proclamation is constitutional, as we rightly said. The suspension is what a whole lot of people have problems with. Yeah. Then we need to now ask a question. Is it unprecedented? Has it never been done before? Then we might need to go down history lane. Sometimes in 2006, where President Obasanjo also evoked the same thing in Ekiti State. As funny as some people might see that, oh, it's not rational. Why? Yes, it's not constitutional. But we should have this at the back of our minds, that there are some situations where the doctrine of necessity might be invoked. Not necessarily to suspend any form of laws or what have you, but for a form of executive discretion, which I want to believe is what Mr. President exercised. By going ahead to suspend them, even though it is unconstitutional, it is not stated in the Constitution, but for common good, for the peace of that state. Mind you, an administrator, sole administrator, was appointed immediately. The same thing that happened in 2006, just to go ahead and safeguard the sanctity and the economic security of that state. Remember, it's an oil-producing state. Yeah. So really, we need to take sentiments out of this and look at the logicality, the rationality of that decision.
But some have said that if the logicality and the rationality is not being supported by the constitution of the country, then there's a problem. And that is, where we have actually highlighted that the president, he does not have that power to suspend. Now I can also understand why you said, okay, it is expedient for the president to see that, we can't go on like this. But it must be in line with the constitution of the country. Looking at that and what the National Assembly now did, ratifying what the president did, some persons have also said, come on, National Assembly, why are you a rubber stamp? Why would you have to go along with the president? Some have said you need to question the president and all of those things. So do you think that, Nigeria's democracy is at stake here, or what exactly do you think we can do?
All right, fine. Before I go to that question, let me lay a premise. We live in a country where the government of the day, no matter how nice it wants to be, is unpopular. So automatically, whatever emanates from that coffers is criticized. Nobody wants to rationalize it. It's bad, it's bad. Do you get it? We don't tend to look at the positive side of things. Now, after laying that premise, we now go to the ratification by the National Assembly. Very justifiable. They went by the books. Nothing was done outside the Constitution. It was all constitutional, two-thirds majority. It was achieved. It was a voice vote. You heard it. The eyes carried it. The nays were almost inaudible in both chambers. And now it has been ratified. Whatever politicking might have happened behind the scenes, highly irrelevant at this stage, especially in a country where we are told to just look away and just focus ahead. Do you understand? In order to thrive and survive. Okay. So really, we all have this discourse, this conversation now depends on individual opinion. But the fact still remains, the deed has been done. A state of emergency has been decreed. Do you understand it? Now there's a sole military administrator. Now the state will move forward. And let us look at the positive side of this. Fubara can go and cool off. Whoever, Mr. Project 2, that we need in FCT can come to FCT and face FCT. Do you get? It's just a 6 months suspension. It's not perpetual. Yeah. I know a lot of people will get my neck for this, but really, that state needs peace. We are not in River State. We are in FCT. Some people are in other states. You don't know what is happening in that state. The tension, the agitation, the fear in people, what is going to happen today. Right now, I think, was it not last week, some pipelines were already being blown up. Is it until there's a total state of anarchy? So really, my brother, sentiments aside, sometimes we need to look at the security of the state, people. Do you understand the economic security of that state? Those were the things that were put into consideration before any decision was made. Mind you, I'm not an advocate for the government of the day. I have my own reservations too. But we need to learn to rationalize decisions. We need to learn to internalize decisions and move away from sentiments. And like I told you earlier, setting that precedent, the government of the day is not so popular. So anything that emanates, like I was discussing with some people, I said, for the first time last year Christmas, I was driving into the filling station and buying fuel. Nobody ever said that. Once again, I'm not holding brief for the government of the day. But really, we need to move beyond sentiments and look at the rationality and logicality of decisions made.
Okay, so I wanted us to also look at it. After the Supreme Court judgment, it was looking like the governor of River State, Fubara, where he said, he was going to now implement the court judgment. Yes. And of course went to the House of Assembly to submit the budget, which he was supposedly to have done earlier. Yes. But we saw all that what happened where everything happened now. Exactly. But the fact is, some person said, okay, there's already a move being made now. So why, if there's already a move being made, why is the president in such a rush, to just give that, to declare state of emergency when there's already a move being made? Is that not also justifiable?
Now, let me take you, that just happened a few days ago. I watched a whole executive governor of a state being locked out. You saw the scene? Yeah. It was looking so pitiable. That's the extent of degeneration. There was absolutely no regard for his person or his office. That automatically sends a signal. You've lost it. Do you understand? Supreme Court has gone ahead to deliver a judgment. Now you want to comply after so much rascality. Sorry for using that word. After so much water has gone under the bridge. You
mean from both ends?
From both ends. Okay. Now we do not expect the president to sit back and watch. You lock your governor out, you don't even allow him come and present the supposed budget in compliance with a judgment reluctantly though. You get it. You now expect the president to sit back and watch. He already knew that anarchy might ensue. Do you get it? Yeah. That was an obvious indication that whatever judgment was delivered is definitely not going down well with some parties. And mind you, a house divided against itself can never stand. The Holy Book has said it. They are already divided. There's a division. In fact, after 6 months, I'm still wondering how they will look at themselves. And going back to my point earlier, this 6 months is a time, this 6 months suspension is a time for sober reflection. Fubara, go back to the drawing board. Where did I miss it? Where did I go wrong? Mend the bridges if possible. That's if you want to throw a patch of wisdom. You get what I'm saying? And remind you, this 6 months can also be elongated. It can be extended. So this time is a time for sober reflection. Whatever was done, whatever move he made, fine. Though might seem, he's complying with the Supreme Court judgment. Okay, let me go and represent my budget. Were they ready and willing to listen? There was already bad blood. Do you understand? The tension was too high. Certain people were ready to pull down the state. Do you get? And he also had some of his own excesses, even though this is not a platform for that. So putting that into consideration, I don't think going ahead to suspend all of them was outrageous. Even though, like I said earlier, it's not constitutional. Why is it not constitutional? It is not stated in the Constitution. Now left to our lawmakers, this situation keeps coming up. Suspension of governors, suspension of the House of Assembly members. Don't you think it's time to amend the Constitution? To make provisions for such, So that when next it happens, it can even serve as a deterrence to further future executives. This can happen to me, I don't want it to. Nobody wants to be in Fubara's shoes right now. You get what I'm trying to say?
But they are being elected. So
now going to that,
yeah.
I was coming to that. Going to that, this is a democracy. That is where the unconstitutionality comes in. It's a democracy. They were elected into office.
Yeah.
Do you understand? You did not nominate them. About the electorate. Were they put into consideration in making this decision? Do you get? Now we go back to this issue of necessity.
Doctrine of necessity.
Circumstances warrant some decisions. Do you get? You look at every situation based on their circumstances. You cannot compare what is happening now in Rivers State with what happened in Ekiti State. Other states where state of emergency was declared and the governors were suspended and the House of Assembly was suspended. So putting that into view and juxtaposing it, you will see that yes, fine, it was democratically elected, but some things need to be done at certain stages. I want to believe that is what Mr. President did. Once again, I'm not holding brief for anyone. I'm just stating it as can be rationally deduced. You
know, some persons have also said that maybe because of the person in question, let's just put, you know, for the sake of context,
exactly.
sake, you know, maybe because of the person in question, one of the minister of FCT who is in question, and of course who is an ally of the president. That's why the president is one-sided on this matter, and they felt that. Although I know that that couldn't have started, you know, if you suspend the president, if you suspend the governor, why don't you suspend the FCT? But the FCT minister is not even a party to the case in the first place.
Exactly.
I mean, in the court, it was just the lawmakers and the governor. But how do you think when we are playing this doctrine of necessity, how morality can be able to come along with constitutionality, and we don't have a breakdown of law and order in a state like Rivers State?
Okay. Now going to that, if you check all my social media handles, a few days or a few weeks ago, I posted, where are the elders in Rivers State? Where are the elders in our land? Why would this matter degenerate to that level? You get what I'm saying? Now looking at the politics of the system, I'm not a politician. Do you understand? I try as much as possible to stay away from politicians. Do you get? But looking at this issue holistically, there are some embedded undertones of malice and grievances between these two people. That's Fubara and Wike. Do you get? He was his godfather. They brought you into office. Like I said, I'm not a politician. I'll keep repeating that. They brought you into the office. You cannot bite a finger that supposedly fed you. And when you want to dine with the devil, your spoon has to be long. So they know the politics within them. They know what happened, what transpired to have degenerated to this level. Now, going on to say the president should have, Wike was just going to do his own as a godfather, who we all had so many issues against that. Oga, stay in FCT. Leave this man. Let him govern his state. He has his own faults. They both have their own faults. But I want to believe declaring a state of emergency and suspending the governor has to an extent allowed parties to cool off. Now, Fubara, go and cool off and go. With your cabinet. Go back, reconstitute, forgive each other, hug each other, come back in peace. Then we can go back to FCT, govern the FCT. Mr. Project, we are seeing what you're doing. Continue with it. So if you look at it from that angle, really, there's no need to say suspend. Why would we be suspended?
You know, there's an High Court ruling on the fact that a sitting governor cannot be suspended.
Yes.
And if you look at the Constitution, I think is Section 118 where it talked about the process at which a governor can be suspended is either through impeachment, you know. So and this is not part of the requirement that the president used, you know. Why do you think that this was not even considered in the first place?
Once again, the circumstances of the case. We would have said, fine, Mr. President, allow the House to impeach him. Is it the same House that will not even allow you come in to present your budget that will impeach you? You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Like I said, a House divided against itself cannot stand. We know that, yes, constitutional provisions were not adhered to in that suspension. We're not justifying it. But once again, the circumstances warranted that decision.
Yeah, so going forward,
excuse me.
Lastly, going forward,
Right.
what can we do to avert this kind of situation where we now find ourselves, one is constitutional, one is unconstitutional?
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Constitutional amendment, making provision for such unforeseen circumstances that seem to be recurrent. Then collaborative governance, whereby we find a situation where the legislative and executive work more in hand, more hand in hand. They cooperate more. Don't see yourself as enemies. You're there for the people. Do you get? Then advocacy. Like civil society organizations, NGOs, come out and talk about it so that this trend can stop. But the major thing is the constitutional amendment and then judicial powers. Just like the Supreme Court has said. That was the decision of the Supreme Court, the judgment of the Supreme Court got me really thinking at a point that even the court has said what you're doing is not right.
Very true.
A government without a legislature, just the executive and judiciary, what's that? A two-legged chair, it won't stand, it will fall. Yeah. Which is exactly what has happened.
True. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate for you coming.
Thank you.
And I just hope that